Done.
Live stream started?
Yes.
Okay. So, greetings and namaste to our guests and audience, and welcome to the latest episode with Tea with D. And I truly believe that, the knowledge has power and it controls the access to opportunity and advancement. That is why today, with the help of Legal Shastra, we were able to, start this interview series where we bring in eminent personalities of the legal fraternity and they pass on the knowledge that they've gained all these years through their practice, through their knowledge, and the work they've done for so long, and they can help the upcoming generations like me to have a better guidance tomorrow. So before we get into the session, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dashani Guha. I'm a second year law student at CLCD. I hope almost everybody is familiar. Arpit knows it better than me because he's an alumni of my school. And it brings me great pleasure to have you as our audience for today. And if nobody knows who he is, he's a legal consultant in the
Tomorrow.
International
So
Investment
before we
Treaties and
get into the
Framework
session, let
section
me
of the
just
Department of
introduce
Economic
myself. My
Affairs,
name is Dishant.
Ministry of Finance, Government of India. He represents the Indian government in negotiation and conclusions of bilateral treaties, investment in chapters of free trade agreements, then interstate dispute settlements, cases and international disputes and forums. He represents Indian international forums. He's also a qualified lawyer and holds an LL.M in international dispute resolution, one of the most growing fields right now, and from a very reputable institution where I hope to be someday, which is Humboldt University of Berlin. Like me, I'm pretty sure all of the students who are going to be hearing us today are very much interested and keen to know how you've achieved so much and in so little time, and you've been to so many places. So, welcome me in welcoming Arpit Mallick, who is going to be talking to us about his journey. And yeah, so thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule and come and talk with us and have this chat with us.
Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate with the Legal Shastra and share my experiences with all the participants today. And thank you for the elaborate introduction and your kind words. Actually, I haven't achieved so much as you have stated, but yeah, it's been a wonderful professional journey all throughout. So
Right.
I'll begin with a brief introduction that it wasn't everything as hunky dory, if I could put it, in my professional career and life. I did my LLB from Campus Law Center. I was in the batch of 2010 to 2013, and thereafter I did not start practicing or doing internship throughout my LLB or after the LLB because that time my priority was to appear for the civil services exam,
Right.
and I was preparing very meticulously. And in fact, I think I appeared while I was in second year of my LLB and at CLC, and in fact I appeared for the IS interview as well with law optional. And then when I think I missed out by a few marks, and then eventually in 2016, so there was a gap between 2013 to 16. And then eventually in 2016, I decided to get into legal practice. I enrolled with the Bar Council of Delhi, subsequently cleared the All India Bar exam. And then I did some litigation for around 2 years. And then I got an opportunity to work as an arbitration in-house counsel for NCDEX, that is National Commodity and Derivative Exchange Limited. It's like the NSE, but more of dealing in commodities and
Right.
derivatives. So I was in the Delhi office. I was handling North India disputes, and it was quite a fantastic opportunity because I had my own chamber. But after a while, what happened was I was handling only domestic disputes. There wasn't much international disputes which I was handling. And prior to NCDX, there was one wonderful internship which I did with Delhi International Arbitration Center. That's part of the Delhi
Right.
High Court complex. So that was my first introduction to arbitration. So after I had interned there for a couple of months, then I got my interest in arbitration, and then I told my senior at the Delhi courts. I was a typical junior, like most of the juniors start, that I want to get into arbitration, and he was kind enough to encourage me. So after I did my internship, then I got an opportunity to work with NCDX. Then I worked with NCDX, and then I decided to venture into international arbitration, for which I realized that I actually require specialized knowledge of
Mm-hmm.
international arbitration. So then I applied, I shortlisted a few universities. I had, I think I had shortlisted 7 to 8 universities. There was MITS Geneva, there was Humboldt University of Berlin, Queen
Mm-hmm.
Mary, there was Stockholm University, the LLM ICAL program, and there were, I think there was Tsinghua University in Beijing, University of Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong. But then I didn't apply to the other schools because I already had an offer from Humboldt University and Queen Mary University of London. And of course, I got a rejection from MITS Geneva because it's too competitive. Then, but I was fortunate enough to have ample time to decide whether to move to London or Berlin. And so what I did was I contacted my dean of the Humboldt University program. He was kind enough to explain me elaborately what are the pros and cons and why you should join Berlin and why you shouldn't join Berlin. I reached out to the different alumni, particularly Indian alumni who did the LLM,
Mm-hmm.
stayed back, who came back to India. And then after a very detailed research analysis, on a personal opinion, I decided to not go to London but join Humboldt University for the IDR LLM program. That was another fantastic experience because once I joined the IDR LLM program, we were taught modules on international commercial arbitration, investment treaty arbitration, ADR methods, mediation. There were workshops on written advocacy, oral advocacy, but my favorite subject was the investment treaty arbitration, which is my current field now. So
Mm-hmm.
my professor, Dr. Tillman Brown, uh, he was my lecturer, and he was also a retired, I think, civil servant, and he headed the negotiation of investment treaties with the Ministry of Finance in Germany. And so that was my favorite subject, investment treaty arbitration. So I decided to do my master thesis in the same
Right.
subject. So it was titled Interpretation of Umbrella Clause in Bilateral
Mm-hmm.
Investment Treaties. I did my master thesis, and I was fortunate enough to get the highest possible grades in my master thesis, which enabled my overall grades to shoot up, and I ended up getting the Best Student Award for the outstanding performance. I was quite surprised because, comparing it with my experience at Delhi University, it's quite different
Right.
because I never thought myself to be such a, what do you say, a good student
A
at
diligent
Delhi
student,
University,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
a diligent student with my grades at Delhi University. But then at Humboldt University, and after I finished my LLM, that was in October 2020. I also, during my LLM, I interned with one of my professors. He runs a strategic negotiation law firm
Mm-hmm.
in Berlin. So I was there handling strategic negotiations with him. And so now I ended up in my present role at the ministry. I negotiate investment treaties. So it's a mix of my favorite subject and my also experience of negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so after I finished my LLM and then I stayed back in Germany. And because of the pandemic, what happened was there were a couple of internships which got cancelled. I was very keen to intern at ICSID World Bank, but then that also got cancelled because of the pandemic because it struck in, I think, March 2020, right between my winter semester and the summer semester. And then suddenly
Right.
the summer semester turned into a Zoom semester. And then so I worked with a couple of arbitrators there, more like a freelancer because then there was the language barrier because of some the German language arbitration as well as the international arbitration which happens in English. And I came across this opportunity and the vacancy at the Ministry of Finance. So I applied here, and then it took, I think, 4 months or 5 months of the process. And there was a very detailed interview of, I think, 50 minutes, 55 minutes. They were asking all technical stuff about
Right.
ISDS. And then I joined here in October in my present role, and I've been enjoying my journey right now.
Right. I think you've summarized, like, the journey that you've had till now, and it's like it's been very interactive, it's been very deviating, but yet led to a very fruitful journey that you've put in. And I think, as you said, that you did pretty well outside. I think most of the Indian students end up doing a lot better from what they're doing here because of the competitiveness that we've been taught since a very younger age, which is not very much inculcated outside, but it's so much inculcated in us that we end up doing good. I think that's what leads us to being good. And, like, yeah. So, on the similar lines, as you said, that you apply to a lot of other universities, and specifically like UK and Singapore and Hong Kong, which is like the hub of LLMs, usually, which people end up going in, like US and all. So, you decided to go to LLM. for Humboldt University, which is one of the greatest university in Germany. Germany. I don't know if anybody is familiar, but I have researched and I've got to know the standards of that university. But I still feel that in India, it's still not very like known. So how did you not fall into, as you said that you had a conversation with the dean, so what all was like discussed that led you to not falling into the basic UK LLM trap and going to an offbeat place like Germany?
Okay, so basically the UK program at Queen Mary, University of London, that's also a very fantastic program. I wouldn't
Right,
deny it, and it was a tough decision for me to choose between the IDR LLM program and the
right.
Queen Mary University of the QMUL program. So based on my research, I realized a few differences. First was the biggest difference was the financial considerations because
Right.
the tuition fee at Humboldt University during my times was I believe 9,000 euros, whereas at Queen Mary it was around 22,000
Yeah.
pounds. So the
Right.
substantial difference, and then the living expenses in Berlin
Right.
is quite cheaper than living in London. That was the primary consideration. Apart from that, I still have a lot of colleagues and friends who did the QMUL program in UK, and so what I realized, what the Queen Mary program also has a class strength of around, I believe, 70 to 80 students, as compared to the IDR LLM at Humboldt, which had a batch of 25 of us. So then
Right.
the batch strength also differs, and you get more personalized attention. And then thirdly, the considerations of staying back, because in Germany you can stay back for another 18 months after you
Mm-hmm.
finish your studies,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in the UK it was earlier only 6 months. Now I think
Right.
the policy has changed, but during my times it was just 6 months of staying back.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for not just finishing my LLM and heading back to India, but working for a while for a year or so, gaining some
Mm-hmm.
international experience, and then moving back to India eventually. So that was the third consideration, and also the program at the UK, the Queen Mary program, is quite intensive. I wouldn't say that the Humboldt University is not very intensive. It is intensive, but the Queen Mary program was more intensive because I believe they have a trimester system,
Right.
and then it becomes a little difficult to find internship when you're working on assignments and you have
Mm-hmm.
examinations. Whereas the IDR LLM program, it was more close to the Delhi University program, in which you have semester exams, and of course we have assignments, but you don't have exams happening every second week. So there's
Right.
ample time, and then the class strength was less, so there was the
Mm-hmm.
competition for internships was less. All of us, despite having the pandemic, all of us, each 25 of us, managed to find not only one but multiple internships. That is what
Right.
counts after the LLM, because apart from the degree and the subject matter knowledge, if you have some internship experience, that also counts. So that was another factor of choosing Berlin. And then, of course, Berlin is a fantastic place to be here.
So I think what I've gathered is like, when you're going for such subjects, you need to not just look at the subject altogether, the course altogether, but what all surroundings you're going to be living in, because you're going to be living in a very new environment. So you still end up want to find some familiarity, because that is one of the reasons that you went, because you said that, because it was very similar to what you've been accustomed to in DU. Secondly, the money aspect, which is a very big issue for us because the exchange rate is pretty high, and to be very honest, not a lot of us can afford. So I think you've made a great decision, and I hope this promotes the student to look into alternate options if they're not get discouraged if they're not getting into the London based universities or American universities. So you mentioned that you got a chance to intern and work with German firms and German litigators and arbitrators and lawyers, and you've had the chance to work in India as well in the legal fraternity as well as preparing for the civil exams. So how is it different in ways of infrastructure of the field, legal fraternity, the pay, and the knowledge and the whole job sector that exists in both the countries?
Okay, the difference in the legal structure between India and Germany is one of the major differences is the jurisdiction, that is a civil law jurisdiction. This is a common law jurisdiction.
Right.
But then in the field of international arbitration, what happens is there's a interaction or interface with the courts only when there is some court related matter happening.
Right.
Otherwise, arbitration is not the same as litigation.
Right.
Having said that, the major difference was the language because in Germany it's important to have some language, German language proficiency, which would help you in the legal career. In fact, I would recommend everyone to have at least C1 level. I managed to do the A2, that is the A-SOI, A-SOI level
Mm-hmm.
of German language proficiency, and that too at my university in Berlin. And so yeah, the language barrier is there. You need, if you actually have some German language proficiency, it helps you getting
Mm-hmm.
more jobs and more internships.
Mm-hmm.
But then the difference, I'll say to summarize, the difference is what I realized when I went there is most of our professors and lecturers were not academic lecturers full time per se,
Right.
except for a couple of them. Most of them were already partners in international
Oh.
arbitration law firms at your firm. So that helps. And then, during the internship, what happens is it.
Did well, that if you do well, you'll probably end up, because Germany is a small country, but the opportunities are booming and they need more people. So I think that's where India can do well. Indian students can do well because we're too many. So I think going to such
Yeah.
a country where they need people will help you in, like, similarly. So, as a student, I would want to know, like, what can a student, keep in mind during their law school journey if they're planning to pursue an LLM specifically from abroad? Like, what all skills can they develop, or a grade that they need to keep in mind, or anything else that they should take care of during the law school journey?
During the law school journey, well, there are two ways to do an LLM. First is there's nothing right or wrong. There, either you do your LLB
Mm-hmm.
and then straight after go for an LLM, or you gain some work experience after you finish your LLB and then go for the foreign LLM.
Yeah.
I believe the second mode, that is having had some experience, is much preferable and better than straight away going for the LLM after the LLB. Because what happens is during your LLB, not everyone is very clear about the field of law which they
Right.
want to specialize in. And after your LLB, if you work for at least a year or maybe 6 months, you gain some specialization. You realize that,
Right.
okay, I was very passionate about, say, intellectual property rights back in law school, but I realized that no, arbitration is something I want to specialize in. Or maybe you go the other way around and you believe that international law is much better. So that is one way. But then, having said that, there's no bar or absolute bar, and I wouldn't discourage people from not for going for a foreign LLM right after LLB. That is very much possible. Some of my batchmates, the 25 of us, had various degrees of experiences. So one of my batchmates, she had around, I think, 7 years of work experience. And there were a couple of them who were straight after law school. They finished the LLB and
Mm-hmm.
straight away came for LLM without any work experience. So it works both ways. During the law school, what I would say is what you can do is get more involved in the field of arbitration. Why I'm saying this is because the most of the international universities they don't see a single parameter
Right.
for offering you an admission, giving you an admission offer, but they see a few parameters. What happens
Mm-hmm.
is they see your overall academic profile and your letter of motivation, your referee letter, that is a letter of recommendation, your statement of purpose, and also your CV and your grades as well. But the
Mm-hmm.
grades, I don't think you need to have the best grades possible or you need to be a topper. That's the wrong notion. But yeah, definitely you should have above average grades. For example, my grades at LLB, I think I had 56%, which was above average during those times because during my batch, it was very difficult to touch 60 or maybe
Right.
get to 61. I think now faculty of law students end up getting 70, 73.
Right.
It's a quite a progress in having the grades. So apart from maintaining above average grades, what happens is now you need to demonstrate this during your LLM applications. There's no examination or interview where
Right.
you can actually give. So everything depends on the documents you submit.
Mm.
Particularly, the most critical document is your statement of purpose or the letter
Exactly.
of motivation. So you need to demonstrate your interest and your passion in the field
Mm.
of arbitration. So for that, you during your law school journey, what you need to do is be more involved with the field of arbitration. Like I understand people intern at all different fields of law and all different verticals of law, but for making for doing the LLM in arbitration. It would help if you do a few internships in arbitration. Not only international arbitration, it's difficult to start with international arbitration, but yeah, you
Right.
can do domestic arbitration. Intern with arbitral institutions like there's the Delhi International Arbitration Center, there's the
Right.
Mumbai Center for International Arbitration, then there's Nani Palkiwala International Arbitration
Right.
Center. There's a recent one which opened up in Hyderabad as well.
Yeah.
So you can intern there and also be involved in moot court competitions related to arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
If possible, publish a few papers or articles, not exactly papers, but even articles or
Articles.
blogs on
Yeah.
international arbitration. My point is
Right.
you need to demonstrate that you have been involved in international
Yeah.
arbitration some way. What helped with me is I was able to demonstrate that, yeah, I interned with Delhi International Arbitration Center, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was the arbitration in-house counsel for the exchange where I was working. So that's how I was able to show that. Yeah, and also I was an active participant in a lot of young
Mm-hmm.
international arbitration communities. I would ask the those still in law school to be involved in with young ICA, young ICSID, the young MCIA. I can share a detailed list of the relevant international arbitration
Definitely.
communities
Definitely.
with you later. These are all free of cost, and you don't need to pay anything. And you get access to a lot of blogs and a lot of events which are
Mm-hmm.
happening physically and virtually. Because I remember there was a young international arbitration group of the LCIA, which had an event
Okay.
in Mumbai. So I had attended that, and there were a lot of workshops on cross examination and international arbitration happening in Delhi. So these are various events organized by these international arbitration communities.
Right.
They are free of cost for the young students and arbitration practitioners to get an insight into the industry. And also, it's a fantastic opportunity to network. You meet the great stalwarts.
Right.
So I did this not only in India, but while I was there in Europe as well. So as a law student, you can get involved with these to start with.
Right. So what I've understood is that you, at the end of the day, what matters is your passion towards that particular subject. And if any way you can show it to that university through your SOP, through your LOMs, or like your CV itself, that you know you're dedicated to this field and you have a special interest due to some reason. So I think your chances of getting into that particular course might rise. Otherwise, of course, there's another option of applying to different places and different times because times keep on changing. The motivation should be that the subject that you're taking in, you've given it a lot of thought and you've gotten like really motivated to pursue that subject. I think that's what the college needs to understand. And I think that will work in your favor. So I think you've like told us the main crux of the story very well. So like you hear a lot of things when one goes to pursue the subject, a particular subject in LLM, and there's a question that comes to the mind because there's a lot of money involved when you pursue an LLM because of the money difference or whatever, you're settling in a different country altogether. So the question that might come to a student's head is, if I do an LLM today, will it be significant to my career tomorrow? So like, is it that significant that it might give you an edge over tomorrow, or it is a necessary thing that you should do to get more money or something like that?
See, I believe to answer your question, I believe that an LLM is not a bad thing to start with. It's always wonderful to have an LLM degree.
Right.
And I prefer having a specialized LLM degree over a general
Mm-hmm.
LLM degree because a lot of law schools offer an LLM having
Mm-hmm.
international arbitration, claiming that they have international arbitration specialization. But what happens is if you look up the curriculum very meticulously and detailed, you end up that they're teaching LLM with a very small module on international
Right.
arbitration. So I won't classify that as a specialization. And a specialized LLM program is one in which you are taught international dispute
Mm-hmm.
resolution and arbitration in detail, like my program at Humboldt University in Berlin. And uh, so, yeah, having the LLM, coming back to your question, sorry, I got digressed, but
No, that's totally fine.
coming back to your question, why an LLM degree is essential is, see, there are two ways to, in the legal field, no one says that you need to have an LLM per
Right.
se, but what is required is you need to have a subject matter knowledge to start with. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen overnight that you start reading up and you have subject matter knowledge. You need to study as well as work for a while. Now, to get opportunities in the field of international arbitration, almost everywhere you go, you would require an LLM, especially in Europe, because it's very difficult. Most of the international arbitration practitioners inevitably have an LLM degree. So
Right.
an LLM degree is required, and also if you want to work with the ministry, like for example, the position where I am working, so there was a right away eligibility and a qualification that it should be an LLM with 3 years of work experience at least.
Right.
So an LLM actually helps you not only in fulfilling the eligibility criteria at most of the places, but also in gaining the expert matter knowledge. For
Right. The
example, see,
proficiency.
I was interested in international arbitration, but I wasn't getting that many opportunities. I did an LLM in international arbitration, and I thought commercial arbitration. And while at Humboldt University, I realized that hey, there's another subject called international investment treaty arbitration. That's also a
Right.
very specialized field of international arbitration. And then I worked on it. I wrote my thesis. So it helps in LLM. I believe that the position where I am in right now in my professional career, it wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have done
Without.
an LLM.
Yeah.
So an LLM is highly recommended, especially an specialized LLM.
Right. So I think it depends on what kind of a career you're looking for, and based on that, you can decide if an LLM is significant to your decision of life that you're choosing for. But in most of the terms, what I've seen these days, having a proficiency to some level in a specialized subject is very much needed because there's too many people and there's the demand is less, but the supply is very much high. So I think having an LLM is not a bad thing, but it's more you take it. So, on those, like as you said that, where you are, you're very proud and the LLM that you've done is where you are today. So, I hear usually when I come across people, they're mostly indulged into either the advocacy field of advocacy, litigation, or either in the corporate field, right? And mostly these days, ADR is also something that is very in the rise, especially in India. So you see mediators, negotiators, arbitrators, and everything. So my question to you is, in this time of basic mainstream career options, how did you end up being a legal consultant to the government of India, and that to the Ministry of Finance? Because these opportunities you don't hear much about in the field of law, but you ended up doing, and it's somewhere related to law itself. So it's pretty astonishing as to where one can go for such opportunities in future if they're planning to go into this.
Okay, so to be honest, I myself wasn't uh, aware of this opportunity. I think while I was back in Germany, I was looking through the junk mail of job alerts. I believe I remember. I think I saw Loctopus. So I had subscribed to Loctopus long ago, and I was once going through. Sometimes I go through the job opportunities, and I came across this opportunity of legal consultant with the investment treaty
Mm-hmm.
arbitration, the treaty division of the Ministry of Finance, and I straight away applied it. But then I think it took a while because of the COVID second wave happening last year. I believe in the months of March and April.
Much right.
And then after a couple of months, I got the revert that I've been shortlisted for the interview. And then I appeared for the interview 2 months after I got shortlisted in the month of July. And then in the month of September, I heard back that, hey, if you're interested, you need to join back in a month. And I was like, in a month, and then I was busy wrapping up everything in Germany, getting my deregistration with the Berlin authorities, and within a month deciding to move back and join the ministry. So yeah, these opportunities maybe people are not very much aware because it's not advertised or
Right.
maybe marketed that much as a typical law firm vacancy. But there are actually vacancies with the ministries. For example, there's the Legal and Treaties Division with the Ministry of External Affairs. That is the advisory body for all matters of international law to the Government
Right.
of India. And the place where I work is the IITF, that's the International Investment Treaties Framework section of the Investment Division. Now, that is the nodal agency for all BIT related disputes,
Mm-hmm.
BIT arbitration. So we negotiate investment treaties and investment chapters of free trade agreement with other countries, and also handle like each stage of investment treaty disputes where the Republic of India is a party, the ISDS. And apart from that, we also are involved in policy making. Such as right now, I had a fantastic opportunity to represent India at the UNCITRAL working group session
Right.
held in New York from 14th to 18th of February this month for ISDS reforms. So these are fantastic opportunities, and I'm loving my experience over here. So you just, if anyone wants to work with the ministry, what I would say is, uh, just keep a track of the vacancies, because this is where I am working here in the Ministry of Finance. There are also vacancies for legal consultants in the Department of Commerce. There's the
Right.
DPIIT, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are other divisions as well. So yeah, you need to keep a watch on. Just keep visiting the website every now and then. Look up for vacancies, because
Right.
the government, the vacancies with the government are not advertised much. You
Much.
just
Yeah.
find, if you happen to look up the website, you just happen to see that, hey, there's a
Mm-hmm.
vacancy. I never heard of it, because I don't think anyone's gonna circulate it as much in social media
Right.
over LinkedIn, that hey, there's a vacancy with the government.
Right.
So
So I think
so
it's
that is
just that you
yeah.
need to keep in like touch with the proper channels, source of vacancies, and like check your emails now and then because you never know what comes in your spam and like junk mail. So I think staying updated is the reason that you are today here, and that's very much important because there's not a lack of job opportunities. I would say it's just the lack of advertisement, as you said. So I think that's where students need to play their research skills and their networking skills to so like as you are in the ADR, in the IDR field, to be very honest. So I interact with, because I am very much interested in this, as we have established. So I interact with mediators, negotiators, like arbitrators, and almost every day, like because I am planning to work there, I interact with those people, I network with such people, I intern with such people. And dispute resolution, that has caught my eye. I think everybody's eye in the legal fraternity now. So when I interact with them and they tell me that, Dishani, once you enter this field of law, which is ADR, which is dispute resolution, your perspective about things change as compared to normal advocacy and corporate law. And it's way more humble, it's way more different than the laws that you follow when you're into litigation. So is it true? And like why do you recommend the students of India to go into depth of it?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand your question correctly. Could you
Okay.
rephrase your question?
Yeah, yeah, I would. So the thing is, when I talk to these people, so they tell me that, it's very different. Like when you go into the field of ADR, specifically mediation and negotiation, you hear a different, like you have a different perspective to the dispute as compared to an advocate or a litigant would have. And this is because of the type of practice that we do on a daily basis. So do you also feel this difference because you worked as a lawyer, you worked as a litigant? Now you work in the field of arbitration. So do you see the difference in perspective to dispute resolution? And would you recommend specifically Indian students to go into depth of this particular subject?
Yeah, definitely I would recommend, because I believe the ADR, that is the alternative dispute resolution, the mechanism of resolving disputes,
Mm-hmm.
is much more effective and efficient than the litigation work,
Right.
which is more adversarial, and I think it takes more time with the litigation, and then uh, a lot of time and monetary costs involved with litigation as compared to arbitration, which
Mm-hmm.
provides for a very quick and effective resolution. And in fact, these days things are very evolving very fast in the field of ADR and arbitration.
Right.
For example, there are talks about having uh, what do you say, mediation of international
Mm-hmm.
disputes, ISDS mechanism, not going for arbitration, but also going for ISDS, investor state mediation. Then there's a Singapore Convention on Mediation, which has come
Mm-hmm.
up 2 years ago. So there's International Convention on Mediation, which is similar to the New York Convention on Enforcement of Arbitration
Mm-hmm.
Awards. So
Right.
yeah, mediation and ADR are quite a very fast developing field, and I believe, yeah, it helps to get into the depths of this field. But having said that, very sound and basic knowledge of the litigation field is also required, because what happens is, without having your basics correct, you can't do well in the field of
Well, yeah.
ADR, because it's not a very standalone and separate.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is, for example, in the field of arbitration, you're doing arbitration. But what happens if you have to challenge the jurisdiction of the tribunal or look for interim relief, and for example, say the tribunal hasn't been constituted, you go to the court. Then for enforcement of the arbitration award, once the arbitration is over, again you go to the court for of the seat of jurisdiction of the arbitration for enforcement. So yeah, there is some kind of interaction and interface with the normal litigation. So that is why some basic sound knowledge of litigation is required, and then you can go into the depths of ADR.
Right. So I think it's a very good option for Indian students personally as well, because what I see is ADR is something that is not just practiced by the law like authorities, but also by a lot of international authorities, because international organizations work with ADR. They work in negotiation, they work through mediation. Like if you see the Ukraine Russia issue, India is being called as a mediator. It's not like adjudication is the first step that they go for, but ADR that they're going for. So I think it's a very good field if you're not even planning to go for like just general advocacy. So I think that ways it's a great subject, and I think Arpit has like given a very good overview as to how you can expand your ways through the subject. So the last question that I have for you, it's not a question, it's just a general notion that I would like you to share with the audience today, because we have students from all across India, people who are going to be aspiring to be a law student, or people who recently concluded their graduation. So any general piece of advice that you might have that you wished that as a student probably someone would have given it to you.
Yeah, as a while I was a student, I what do I say? If I wish that yeah, someone would have told me that hey, you need to that the LLM thing is quite a good the LLM is quite a good degree to have, and someone could have helped me with the research on doing the LLM program sooner than later.
Yeah.
But then I had to do it all alone. But yeah, that is there. The LLM program is something I would recommend, like everyone to do the LLM in the field of knowledge. Yeah.
Right. So it has been an incredible session, and I'm glad that you decided to join us today and share the wisdom that you've had for all these years and your tips and tricks as to how to be a better LLM student tomorrow. So I hope that someday I get to meet you face to face and we can have this conversation and further conversations again. So thank you for joining us, and I would like to
Yeah.
extend my
Okay.
gratitude to our lovely audience who've cooperated like throughout the session, and to Legal Shastra to let us have this conversation. So,
Can
Arpit,
I
it's
just
been lovely.
briefly intervene and just give one
Yeah,
last
yeah,
piece of advice? Because
definitely,
I
definitely.
understand, because I was in your place and the student's place. What happens is, don't get stressed out with
Right.
being a super achiever in the career, because what I would say is a great career is not achieved overnight, but by a series of small acts put together. So what
Right.
happens is you publish a paper, maybe do some internships,
Mm-hmm.
get some experience, then you decide to work in the field of arbitration, join a law firm. It's important to get the basics right rather than focusing on what happens is most of the students they focus on the brand name, trying to
Right.
get fit in multiple internships with tier one law firms without actually, you have a what do you say, a set of internship certificates,
Right.
and then you post on LinkedIn. But what happens is you need to understand the subject matter knowledge. So in
Mm.
the field of international arbitration in Germany, what happens is there are two different kinds of law firms. One is the big name law firms, in which it's like the tier one law firms over here, in which you get the big name with on your profile, but you don't end up
Like,
having that
yeah.
subject matter knowledge because not much is entrusted to you. You are doing mostly admin work. But if you work
Mm-hmm.
for a boutique law firm, what happens is it's a
Right.
small team of say 4 or 5 lawyers. You get to interact. You learn a lot. You gain up a lot of skills. So at the initial stages of anyone's career, you need to pick up skills, pick up subject matter knowledge, which I'm currently doing
Mm-hmm.
right now with the ministry. Still learning about investment treaty arbitration. So yeah, focus on small acts, doing small acts, getting it all together, and eventually, I think everyone can have a fantastic career. Not only arbitration or whatever is the field, like say
Right.
criminal law or IPR, but the advice goes generally for everyone to just
I think it's much needed that what you've said is what act has to be said to the students specifically, because the growing times there's so much pressure on us to do well, so we end up spreading, like we try to be the jack of all trades, but what we end up with is master of none. I think that's what applies to a lot of students today, because I think that's very much needed when you said the basics have to be clear, and that's how the LLM also works, as you said, that you need to be well versed with the subject so that they see that you know the subject so that you can like advance it more, because if you're not familiar, you will not feel familiar at the LLM as well. I think that's what goes.
Yeah, because
And
one of the differences which I came across during my IDR LLM program was the semester exams. Because the question paper I remember during the semester exam, it was one question paper with one question only, 3 pages. So there are a lot of facts in A entered into a
yeah,
contract with B and C, and then at the third page you look up the questions that, okay, as per the English law of arbitration, what would happen, and suppose one of the parties is actually Russian. So there's nothing
hmm,
like cramming up, and of course you have the bare axe, and you're allowed to take the bare axe. You get it from the university, so you don't need to mug up, say what is section this and this, or what is section 34 of the Arbitration Act, and so yeah, well, it helps if you get the basics right and if you get your fundamentals right. Because I remember one thing I ensured during my LLM program was, I think throughout the 1 year of LLM program, I think I just missed one lecture and I paid apt attention. So what happens is, if you pay attention in the lectures, you get your basics right, you have your concepts clear, then I don't think it stops you from achieving what you want. So it's
right.
important to focus on the basics and concepts. So that was a difference in the German law school, because I remember during my Delhi University, during the semester exams, we were like set pattern, okay, 10 marks, you need to write 3 pages, 5 case laws in CLC. And then there was this book called Dukki, which I used to read up from at Delhi University. So it
Yeah.
was more of cramming up, they'll ask you ingredients, this and that. But in the international university, it doesn't go that way. They focus more on the concepts, because you can't cram up, because you need to apply your fundamentals and your understanding to a case which is given. And for 2 hours, you need to analyze the case, and that's how you score well.
Right. I think your insights will be very fruitful for the students tomorrow, because they might not understand it today because they're still under the pressure of, cramming and still under the pressure of doing well. But I think probably if they inculcate it early, it will help them. But I'm pretty sure they'll get there, and we'll see great arbitrators and like industry specialists specifically tomorrow, because I think students these days are well aware, they know what they want, and they're doing very well on that. So thank you for the insightful advice that you've provided us. And it has been a great conversation to have you on our platform. And I hope that you come again and share these insights once again with a different set of audience.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a great pleasure interacting with you. And I think on LinkedIn you had tagged my name, so I would ask all the participants if they have any particular questions,
Hmm.
they can get in touch with me over LinkedIn, and I think my email ID is also there. But yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to
But I
network.
think I think I can guarantee it personally that he's very friendly when it comes to that, because I've had the chance to interact with him on those bases, and that's how I came across him. So I think students, personally, I would say you should. He'll be very thorough as to what he can help you with. So you should definitely try it once.
Yeah, I love helping. I never say no to anyone, because I realized that when I was a student, I was also looking for similar guidance and mentorship. So it's always good to give back to the students and the community. Like for example, this evening there's another student who's scheduled a call for reviewing his letter of statement of purpose for the Humboldt University. I think he's applying in this session. And then last week, one of the university asked me to be a coach for the Frankfurt investment arbitration, and there was too much to do. So I keep like a track and keep helping out. So if anyone is interested, they can get back to me on LinkedIn. I'll definitely answer each and everyone's query, maybe belatedly on weekends, but I definitely, yeah, answer everyone. I never say no to anyone. So that's it.
Thank you for coming, and I am thankful for Legal Shastra for letting us have this time. And yeah, I think for today, this is it. And have a good day, Arpit. Have a good day, everybody who's watching us. And please be safe and follow COVID protocols. And yeah, bye bye, guys. Good night. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.